Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Vishnupad Brahmahamsa Parivajikacharya Ashtotra Shatashi Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj srimadbhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the simple devotees, all glories to the simple devotees, all glories to the simple devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. You think you could grab the board, Damodar Kumar, please? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so this morning we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, entitled Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 23, Maharaj Prithu's Going Back Home. And we're on text 38, which is tomorrow will be the last verse of the chapter. Vaichitra virya bihitam mahan mahatmya suchakam asmin kritam atimartyam partavim gitim apnuyat chitra virya bihitam Mahanmahatmya suchakam asmin kritam atimartyam partavim gitam apnuyat Chitravirya bihitam Mahanmahatmya suchukam Asmin kritam atimartyam Partavim gatim apnuvayat. Word by word translation. Vichitravirya, O son of Vichitravirya, Vidura, Abhihitam, explained, Mahat, great, Mahatmya, greatness, Suchakam, awakening, Asmin, in this, Kritam, performed, Atimartyam, uncommon. Partavim, in connection with Prithu Maharaj. Gatim, advancement. Destination. Apnuyat, one should achieve. Translation. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, I have as far as possible spoken their narrations about Prithu Maharaj, which enrich one's devotional attitude. Whoever takes advantage of these benefits also goes back home, back to Godhead, like Maharaj Prithu. Purport. The word Shavayet, mentioned in a previous verse, indicates that one should not only read for himself, but should also induce others to read and hear. That is called preaching. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommended this practice. Yare deke taha kaha Krishna Upadesh. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 7, text 128. Whomever you meet, simply talk with him about the instructions given by Krishna, or tell him of narrations about Krishna. Prithu Maharaj's history of devotional service is as potent as narrations about the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should not make distinctions between the pastimes of the Lord and the activities of Prithu Maharaj. And whenever it is possible, a devotee should attempt to induce others to hear about Prithu Maharaj. One should not only read of his pastimes for his own benefit, but should induce others to read and hear them also. In this way, everyone can be benefited. Om Jnanativedandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshulamadhitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karitavachalam Pangam Langai Tegirim Yakripatamham Vande Shri Gurundinitaranam Vancha Kapadribhishta Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gauda Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All right. Translation again. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, I have as far as possible spoken their narrations about Prithu Maharaj, which enrich one's devotional attitude. Whoever takes advantage of these benefits also goes back home, back to Godhead, like Maharaj Prithu. Okay. So Srila Prabhupada, his life was a life of, he was very much in the mood of preaching, or spreading Krishna consciousness. And one devotee, Harikesh Swami, at the time, he asked Prabhupada, because he asked Prabhupada an interesting question. He said, Srila Prabhupada, it seems like you're in the mood of Prahlad Maharaj. Is that true? And Prabhupada said, yes, I'm in the mood of Prahlad Maharaj. He said, I'm always trying to deliver these people, fools and rascals, people who are devoid of Krishna consciousness. I'm always trying to save them by giving them Krishna consciousness. And interesting enough is that in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, in Antya Kanda, last section of the work, it explains that Gadadhar Pandit, he would recite the Bhagavatam to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Jagannath Puri. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was very attracted and very attached. And it said, specifically, it says there that he heard hundreds of times, not just Dhruva Maharaj, pastimes, but he said also Prahlad. Prahlad Maharaj and Dhruva Maharaj, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very attracted to. And Prahlad Maharaj, he's in the mood of a preacher, in that he says, right, I don't want to run off to the Himalayas, but I want to stay in the cities where I'm needed, and try to give Krishna consciousness to people suffering humanity. And also, we got Prahlad Maharaj appearing in the Bhagavatam. And then in Chaitanya Leela, Prahlad Maharaj appears as Vasudeva Dutt. And Vasudeva Dutt is very, very intimate associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Vasudeva Dutt had this quality, and specifically it wasn't just a quality, but it was a mood, and he was willing to perform particular activities for the benefit of everyone, the whole universe. And it said, and there's a section in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that mentions how Vasudeva Dutt, he had this idea that he wanted to take all of the suffering, all the sins, all the karma of all living entities in the whole universe. That's a lot of karma. That's a lot of I mean, just to take all the sinful activities, all the karma of everybody in Pacific Beach would be a lot. It'd be a lot, actually. A lot. Right, Mukunda Charna? Huh? Too much. Yeah, too much. All the sins, all the karma of everyone in Pacific Beach, imagine. They say just for eating cow flesh, how much reactions you get. It's very severe, actually. Spending time in the hellish regions. And what to speak of all the other things people are doing, it's quite... So him, Vasudeva Dutt, he wanted to take everyone's. That's a very intense, that's a very spectacular idea he had. Merciful. Extraordinary. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard about this, and he said that, Vasudeva Dutt, you don't have to do this. He said, your compassion, it's breaking my heart. You don't have to do this. I'll liberate this whole universe. I'll send everyone back to Godhead. And you don't have to suffer their sinful reactions. You don't have to spend time you don't have to spend time in hellish region for people's karma, for people's sinful activities. And in that particular section, it explained how Vasudeva Dutt was actually Prahlad Maharaj. It was Prahlad Maharaj. So you have Prahlad Maharaj and you have Vasudeva Dutt. So, and Srila Prabhupada said he's in the mood of Prahlad Maharaj. Which, Prahlad Maharaj is Vasudeva Dutt. So he's also in the mood of Vasudeva Dutt, willing to take on difficulties, willing to take on suffering for the benefit of suffering humanity. So this is wonderful quality of a Vaishnava, is that they're willing to take on suffering for other people. In other words, a Vaishnava is not selfish or self-centered, but a Vaishnava is always thinking about the benefit of others. So that's a good that's a transcendental qualification of a Vaishnava. So Srila Prabhupada, being in that particular mood of a preacher, he also wanted devotees to be in that mood as well. He wanted us to be in that mood as well. And like one time, my spiritual master, he was there in Juhu at Mumbai, and he was going out and making life members preaching throughout the day. Srila Prabhupada was there at the temple. So my spiritual master came back, and he was very enthused with his daily activities, and he said, "Oh, Srila Prabhupada, this preaching's so great." He said, I really like this preaching. And then Prabhupada said, not like, it's not that we like preaching. It says, preaching is our life. Preaching is our life. So there is a difference there. There's a big difference, actually. Someone may say, I like religion. I like religion, or I like my church, or I like going to my church, or I like practicing my religion. But there's a difference when someone says, my church, or my religion, or my temple, or is my life. That's what I live for. Or yeah. So there's quite a difference. Where you say that, or sometimes devotees say that Krishna consciousness is not like spice of life, it's life itself. It's not just something to spice up life. But someone may say, okay, well, what's my qualification? Someone may say, what's my qualification? You're saying, Srila Prabhupada saying, preach, preach, preach. Spread Krishna consciousness, spread Krishna consciousness, spread Krishna consciousness, all throughout his books, all throughout his lectures. Through his personal example, he's teaching us. But some may say, what's my qualification? How can I do that? And the answer may be, well, you may not have much qualification. Or we may not have much qualification. In other words, we may not be a pure devotee, or we may not be completely free from material desires, completely attached to Krishna. We may not be perfect. So the question is, does one have to be perfect in order to teach Krishna consciousness? And the answer is no. One doesn't have to be perfect. One may be far from perfect, and still for them to preach is good. Why? Because by that particular activity of spreading Krishna consciousness, this is how they will become perfect. They will get closer to perfection by spreading Krishna consciousness. It's not like there's endeavoring for perfection in Krishna consciousness and then there's preaching. They're not separate. They go together. In other words, by preaching, it's an aspect of Krishna consciousness that helps us move closer towards perfection, which sometimes people don't understand. They think, oh, well, me chanting Hare Krishna and me engaged in deity worship or hearing the Bhagavatam or whatever it may be, that is how I'm getting closer to perfection. But preaching, oh, that's kind of like a side thing that if you're into, great, or, more power to your brother, right, if you're able to do it. But it's not seen as something that is a method for getting closer to perfection, but it is. As Srila Prabhupada once said in Los Angeles, said that if you want to approach Radha and Krishna, which that is the perfection of Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada stated many times, then you have to approach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In this particular age, we have to approach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he said, in order to get the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you have to approach Lord Nityananda to get his mercy. In order to do that, you have to approach Jagais and Madhais, of which there is no shortage. So in other words, one has to try to spread Krishna consciousness, and then they'll get the mercy of Nityananda, Chaitanya, and then approach Radha and Krishna. So it is a process that helps us towards perfection. So one doesn't have to be perfect, and one may be very imperfect. And one may, because also sometimes it's said, you can't really distribute what you don't have, right? You have to really relish Krishna consciousness, and then you can distribute it. It's true. But even if you're not relishing it, you should still do it out of duty. Because, sometimes, I'm not really I'm kind of happy sometimes. I kind of feel the bliss sometimes, or I'm really in Maya most of the time, or I'm not really feeling it most of the time. But whatever the case is, whether somebody's not feeling it at all, they're feeling it 100%, whatever the case is, even if they're not relishing, they should just do it out of duty. They should do it out of duty. Just like someone may say, well, I don't really experience the full nectar of chanting Hare Krishna, so maybe I should just give it up. Or I don't really experience the bliss of reading Prabhupada's books. Maybe I should just not do it. But that's how we. But we should do it out of duty. That's the point. We should do it out of duty. And by doing it out of duty, even though we don't have much taste for it, Rupa Goswami says in the Nectar Instruction, by carefully chanting the holy names every day, one will develop a taste. So we understand that out of duty, it's good for us to do certain things. And then, over time, we'll develop a taste for them. So that's also with spreading Krishna consciousness. We may not have a big taste for it, but out of duty we do it. Because Prabhupada wants it, and the Acharyas want it. And over time, we'll develop a taste for it. So that's a bad excuse. Bad excuse that I don't have much taste for Krishna consciousness. Okay, well, preach and you will have more taste. Or as Prabhupada says in a very wonderful purport in the 4th canto, he says, one who wants to get free from Maya, it's very easily done. And he says it's done by repeating the message of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, by spreading the message, book distribution, speaking the message. Now, of course, if one is perfect, that's all the better. That's the best, if they're perfect. And as we know and heard many times, and we'll hear again right now, that there's different ways we could become perfect. There's Kripa Siddha, right? We become perfect by just blessings of the spiritual master Krishna. Not much, you could say, endeavor necessarily. And then there's sadhana Siddha. We become perfect by our sadhana, engaging in sadhana bhakti, and also by the mercy of Krishna combined. And then there's Nitya Siddha. eternally perfect coming from the spiritual world, like Srila Prabhupada and other Vaishnavacharyas. And these particular perfections, it's something that maybe you could say, for most people say, oh, well, I'm not a Nityasiddha. I mean, most will say that, and it's true. I'm not eternal. I'm not coming from the spiritual world to enlighten everybody here. Okay, fine. Well, that's checked out. Then we can't be considered Nityasiddha at this stage. And so then, okay, well, what's our other options then? Sadhana Siddha, Kripa Siddha. Now, becoming perfect through mercy, it's a little. You could say. It's a little tricky because we don't want to depend too much on that, because there can be a mentality of kind of waiting around, or lethargy, or laziness, or kind of like expectation, like, hey, where's the mercy, Krishna? Where's the mercy, spiritual master? And also, yeah, you could say like a lazy mentality, like, well, it's Kali Yuga, and I mean, who could really follow anyways, right? I mean, it's so difficult, and I'll just kind of do my best. I mean, it's not really my best, but it's kind of my best considering I'm a Kali Yugite, and what do you really expect from me? I mean, come on, get real here. And then kind of living life like that, and just expecting mercy, which not putting out enough endeavor. And then also at the time of death, I mean, just expecting some mercy. I mean, it's nice to expect mercy, but therefore it's recommended to try to become perfect through sadhana bhakti, engaging in spiritual practice seriously. Of course, that's the best. And in the Chaitanya, being perfect in any one of these ways. And Srila Prabhupada said it doesn't matter how you become perfect, whether you're Nityasiddha, Sadhana Siddha, Kripa Siddha. And the examples given of if you're rich. I mean, some people are born rich. Some people, I don't know, they inherit something, right, from their family, the mother, father, big inherit to become rich. And some people, by their hard endeavor, they become rich. But if you're rich, you're rich. There's no, I mean, if you're rich, you're rich. So there's no difference. And Srila Prabhupada was asked this question by a disciple about his last life, and were you always perfect, and things like that. And Srila Prabhupada answered that yes, it doesn't matter. Nityasiddha, Sadhana Siddha, they're all the same. They should all be respected the same. And he said that, but as far as I could tell you, that there was never a time that I forgot Krishna. And he said I had full opportunity for the breaking the four principles, and he said I never did that throughout my life. And he said also that his astrologer said something that in his last life he was a type of physician and doctor and sinless character. So within the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it said Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says to Haridas Thakur, he says that some people their behavior is not so great, but they preach, right? And some people, their behavior is great, it's just wonderful, but they don't preach. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to Haridas Thakur, he said, you behave properly and you preach, therefore you're the most advanced devotee. So this is a nice platform to try to reach, that we behave properly and we spread Krishna consciousness. It's very much appreciated by Lord Chaitanya. And of course, there's another example of it, or another case I thought of, is that person has bad behavior and they don't preach. That's really not good, Yeah. So, and in this particular activity of practicing Krishna consciousness and try to spread Krishna consciousness, a lot of people they become tripped up. Means they become discouraged by failure. I have failed. Someone may be thinking, I have failed in my vows in different regards. Someone may be thinking, I have failed in trying to please my spiritual master. I have failed in controlling my mind and senses. I have failed in effectively trying to spread Krishna consciousness. And there's a lot of discouragement that may arise. And in relation to this, one particular devotee, he sent a donation recently to the temple. And with his donation, he also sent a nice excerpt from a conversation with Tamal Krishna Goswami and Srila Prabhupada. So I'll just read that. It doesn't say where it's from, but anyways. As the Vedas are eternal, so this truth of Krishna consciousness is also eternal. One should have firm faith in this injunction without envying the Lord. So Tamal Krishna Goswami is saying. There are many so-called philosophers who write comment on the Bhagavad Gita but have no faith in Krishna. They will never be liberated from the bondage or fruit of actions. But an ordinary man with firm faith in the eternal injunctions of the Lord, even though unable to execute such orders, becomes liberated from the bondage of the law of karma. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunctions of the Lord. But because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness, he will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness. And then Prabhupada says, yes, in the beginning there may be some failures. That is quite natural. Just as a child is trying to stand, he may fall down. But that does not mean he should give up the idea. Go on. A time will come when he will be perfect. So we should not give up this business to try to serve the Supreme. May be imperfect in the beginning, but stick to it, and a time will come when you'll be perfect, Krishna conscious. Therefore, this one practice, chanting Hare Krishna and hearing, that is very nice, and praying to Krishna, please give me strength. Hare, O energy of Krishna, O Krishna, I am fallen, I have no strength, please accept me. That's all. I have no qualification. I am frail, I am trying, but I am failing. All these appeals should be made. And Krishna is all-powerful. He can do anything. Even we do not perform, trying our best. If we fail, Krishna will help us, just like a child tries his best, but he falls down. The mother takes up, and all right, come on, walk, like that. So yeah, Srila Prabhupada saying in the beginning that there may be failure, and just as a child's walking, the child may fall down. But the child shouldn't give up the idea, and the parent shouldn't give up the idea. I mean, the parent, a good parent, which Krishna is the best parent, doesn't give up the idea that, oh, well, this person's falling as a child. It's not that it's like, okay, well, forget about him. Let him lay there on the ground, and child means what is it? When does someone learn how to walk? What? How old? Ramapati? You have full experience of this. When did children learn how to walk? How old are they? A little over a year. Okay. So, little over a year, that's when they learn how to walk. At that particular stage, they need parents to take care of them. Or else, yeah. They need parents to take care of them, to feed them and everything. So it's not like, oh, well, the parents see the child and, he fails a few times, falls down a few times, like, all right, well, I'm out of here. See you later, buddy. It's child abuse. It's just all these horrible stories you hear. People do stuff like that. But a good parent, helps the child until the child walks, until the child learns how to walk. and continues helping the child throughout their life. That's a good parent. So Krishna's like that. It's not that he gives up. Krishna never gives up. But also, so that's important. Krishna doesn't give up. And if we have failures in whatever regard, it may be failures in so many different aspects of our life, we should not give up, because giving up is that means we just, we like in war, they hold the flag up. Okay, we surrender. We can't. You guys, if we continue fighting, you guys are going to annihilate us. You guys are going to kill us. So we're just putting up our flag, white flag. We're putting up our white flag. And then what does the other party do with them at that point? Depends on their morals. They become slaves. Yeah. Well, for this analogy, it's a good. We'll go the slave route. They take their kingdom. So similarly, it's like if one gives up in the war. Okay, I'm putting my flag up, Maya, my white flag. Take me, I'm yours. I'm now your servant, slave. So we don't want to do that. Yes, we want to be slaves of Krishna, servants of Krishna. Yes. We want to surrender to Krishna instead. So yeah, it is natural, normal, but over time, the idea is that we want to get closer and closer and closer to perfection until we're perfect. And of course, when we're perfect, we don't think we're perfect. That's, as Vijay Prabhu was saying the other day, devotee never thinks they're perfect. So, and lastly, just two examples is that there's example of Chintamani, who was a very good preacher, and she did, really inspired one great devotee within Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu really appreciated this devotee, Bilva Thakur. So Bilva Thakur was attached to this prostitute, Chintamani, and he would meet with her regularly. And one particular night, it was stormy and rainy, and he was crossing the river, and apparently held on to dead corpse to get across, and climbing the big wall, falling down, and scraped up, soaking wet, and then appearing on her doorstep, of Chintamani's doorstep, and Chintamani said, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I came to see you," and and she made some comment that if you had just a fraction of devotion or attachment that you do to me, to Krishna, you'd be a pure devotee. And from that, something triggered in him, and then he made his way to Vrindavan. He left her and made his way to Vrindavan. And of course, on the way to Vrindavan, he became attracted to another woman. Followed that woman, and then she went to a particular house, and she was a married woman, and the man of the woman said, "How can I help you?" Bill Mangla, how can I help you? And he said, "Oh, I like to enjoy with your wife." So the man somehow or other said, "Okay, sure." And then they went. Bill Mangla Thakur was there in the room, and his wife, the man's wife, came in, and he started feeling so terrible from having these desires arise in his heart, these material desires, because he just left Chintamani, and he's going to Vrindavan. He's not going to Las Vegas. He's going to Vrindavan. It's not that he was some, So, he's still in bed. So he said, "Oh, my dear lady, can you please give me your hairpin?" And then she said, "Okay," and she gave her the hairpin, and then he gouged out his eyes, became blind. And eventually he made his way to Vrindavan, and he became such a pure devotee that Krishna would appear to him personally. and provide him milk, and he'd have visions of Krishna, the real, accepted by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He wrote a wonderful book, Krishna Karnamrita. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he advised all of his followers to read. So Chintamani was a great preacher, preaching to Bilamanga Thakur. And then lastly, there was this, Prabhupada mentions this, another prostitute, within Calcutta, hundreds of years ago. She was a prostitute by profession, and what she did is she built a very beautiful temple in Calcutta. And there's all these, the temple room, there's all these really small little mirrors as like decorations. And there's a Radha Krishna temple. So Prabhupada mentioned her on a few occasions that even the prostitutes were devotees. Even the prostitutes were preaching. So yeah, she was also a great preacher. You build a temple, so many people come. They get prasadam, they see the deities like that. So within Vedic culture, even the prostitutes are preachers. Some of them. So, in other words, there's no excuse for anybody else. Oh, I can't do it. Well, Chintamani did it, and also this other, I forgot her name, but she also did it. And then by doing that, it says, by inducing people to hear, for ourselves reading, ourselves hearing, and inducing others to do that, then everyone will be benefited spiritually. And therefore, right, Yadadikata Krishna Badesh, whomever you meet, simply talk with them about the instructions given by Krishna, or tell him of narrations about Krishna. And it doesn't matter who you are. You could do that. So, all right, does anybody...
Now on the YouTube chat, Jai Bhakti says, thanks for class, Balaram Prabhu. And then she says, question. I think this is meant for you. She says, question. When Srila Prabhupada uses the word repeating, then his message is that we need to put a stress on repeating rather than elaborating much? Question mark. Thanks.
Well, I mean, Srila Prabhupada, he himself wrote purports for the Bhagavatam, and someone may question, why did he do that? Because there's also other commentaries on the Bhagavatam, Sanatana Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. There's so many acharyas who wrote commentaries on the Bhagavatam. So why is there a need for another one? And Srila Prabhupada felt there was a need because he was dealing with a whole nother, you could say, whole nother race of people. Means a whole nother types of minds he was dealing with. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada, within his purports, he emphasized many things that perhaps Sanatana Goswami or Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur didn't emphasize, because he's dealing with certain people, modern world. Like Prabhupada would say in some of the purports, he talks about apartments, right? Which, as far as I understand, there wasn't many apartments, in Sanatana Goswami's time or Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's time. And there's so many examples like it. Prabhupada talks a lot about the dangers to be avoided within spiritual life. Prabhupada mentions illicit sex a lot. He mentions different things, dangers, because he's dealing with a particular class of people throughout the world. So, and Srila Prabhupada, he instituted the Srimad Bhagavatam classes for devotees to read the verse, read the purports, and as Srila Prabhupada said, repeat their message in their own words. Means that each devotee will bring to the table, or bring to the audience, bring to the forum, bring to the floor different realizations, which should be in line with Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, the spiritual master, the saintly persons in Scripture. But yeah, it becomes sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. Just like Shukadeva Goswami, he's said to be Srimati Radharani's parrot in the spiritual world. Shuka, parrot, Shukadeva Goswami. So it says that by him repeating the message of the Bhagavatam, it became more relishable. And there's that verse, Nigamakopataro Galitam Palam, Shukamakav Amritam Javasam Yutam, Pibita Bhagavatam Rasamalayam, Muhraho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavuka. So it's saying, oh, expert and thoughtful persons relish the nectar of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the mature fruit of the Vedic wisdom, and it's become even sweeter after being recited by Shukadeva Goswami. So, and apparently if a parrot nibbles on a fruit, on a particular fruit, and it's more sweet. What's it? Rajendra Nandana Prabhu said he tried that out in Vrindavan one time. And it was true. It was true. Also with that, it says that the swans, they're able to extract milk from water. They take the essence from everything. So sometimes devotees, they wonder, how is that possible? Because, how does a swan do that? So Bajranarayan Swami brought up one time that what happens is the swan, it will take the water that's mixed with the milk that's mixed with the water and take it into its mouth, and there's certain enzymes that are produced that curdles the milk, and then the swan spits out the water. So, interesting. So yeah, we repeat the message. That's true. We don't want to change the message. But according to where we are in the world, who we're talking to, what's going on in the world, so many things like that, we may speak in different ways, as long as they're as long as they are following the conclusions of we're not changing anything, we're just saying it in ways which people may more easily understand. Just like Srila Prabhupada one time said to some alcoholic or something, he said, "Oh, this wine, it's the taste of Krishna. That's how you should see it." Right? So, according to a particular person, Prabhupada's communicating. So, anyways, I hope that helps. Any other last? Damodar Kumar, you have some reflection or addition?
Just the point that you were making of bearing with the rough times, like specifically you referred to reading, that you may not have a taste initially, but if you stick with it, you may not have a taste initially when you start to read, but then as you stick with it, hopefully gradually, eventually something happens. But I think that very principle of discipline is so powerful, and that's really how you make advancement in any aspect of life. Sense control, working on your craft, your projects, services, your spiritual practice, most especially. But yeah, I was just appreciating that point that you made.
Yeah, we do it because it's good for us, and then that's sadhana bhakti. We know it's good for us, so we do it. And then, just like if we know it's nourishing for us, like sometimes people, they want to eat all types of unhealthy things. But if a person wants to be healthy, they have to eat healthy things. And they may not want to do it, but they know it's good for them. It's nourishing for their body. So it's like someone, there's reading, there's so many things that should be done. and they're nourishing for us, the soul. So, but whether we like to do that or not, you could say it doesn't really matter in the sense that, it just should be done because it's nourishing, and the spiritual master wants it. And then that's sadhana bhakti. You do that, and then we make advancement, and then we have a great taste for it. So, and that's what Prabhupada wants, to have us to have a nice taste. So, all right, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki